Good afternoon. My name is Gina Hochstein from Unitec in New Zealand, Aotearoa. I will be presenting a paper titled Investigating the Spectrum of Gender and Ornamentation Through Making. In recent years, there's been an increasing emphasis on the need to discuss gender and architecture in academic institutions. As architecture schools strive to develop their pedagogical ethos, the integration of feminist and gender-related discourse has become an essential part of rethinking traditional architectural practices and spaces. This movement reflects broader societal shifts as students increasingly demand a more inclusive and intersectional approach to education. One influential voice in this area is Sarah Ahmed, professor in race and cultural studies at Goldsmiths College and University of London, who has written extensively on the subject. Ahmed has observed how students are actively seeking out academic courses focused on feminism, and that discussions on queer and trans feminism have been particularly well received in tertiary institutions. This demand highlights a desire for greater representation and inclusivity in the academic curriculum. Architecture schools are no exception. During a recent summer school course at Unitec in Auckland, New Zealand, Aotearoa, I had the opportunity to engage students with feminist texts that explored the relationship between making, space, and the body. These texts, many of which highlighted feminist theory and spatial practices, served as a foundation for creative exploration. The students were tasked with reading, drawing, testing, and creating pieces that conceptualized the body as a site of architectural engagement. Through these exercises, we facilitated discussions about Donna Haraway's concept of unhomogeneous gendered social space. Haraway's notion challenges conventional binary thinking about gender and space, advocating for a more fluid and non-hierarchical approach to understanding societal relations in the built environment. The course aimed to bridge the two disciplines, jewelry and architecture, offering students a deeper understanding of how these creative practices intersect. By the end of the course, students were to understand how jewelry can be viewed as a form of architecture, one that is smaller in scale but equally concerned with the principles of design, materiality, and spatial relationships. This concept prompted the students to reflect deeply on their own personal cultures, identities, and reference points. Students came from cultures ranging from China, Tonga, Croatia, Indigenous Māori, and Pakeha, European New Zealanders. The varied cultural backgrounds were a starting point for reflecting on their possible biases and interests in relation to each other and living and studying in New Zealand as students. Diversity plays a significant role in this process. Each student brings their own cultural and traditional beliefs to the table, resulting in unique perspectives and creative outputs. Diversity is acknowledged and celebrated in the studio as a driving force behind innovation. The varied experience of individuals contribute to a rich tapestry of ideas, pushing the boundaries of both jewelry design and architecture. The texts written by women provided were Beatrice Colomina's essay, The Split Wall, Domestic Voyeurism, Donna Haraway's essay, Situated Knowledges, The Science Question in Feminism and the Privilege of Partial Perspective, and Minga Zhang's article, The Dialectical Relationship Between Techno-Ethics and Contemporary Jewelry. Colomina explores the intricate relationship between modern architecture, domestic spaces, and the act of looking. She highlights how architecture serves not only as a functional entity, but also as a medium for visual engagement, shaped by the dynamics of observation and display. Colomina examines the modernist home as a space of voyeurism, where walls are no longer solid barriers, but transparent or fragmented surfaces that invite surveillance and visibility. Haraway critiques the objectivity claimed by traditional science and calls for a more nuanced feminist approach to knowledge production. Haraway introduces the concept of situated knowledges, emphasizing that all knowledge is produced from specific social, historical, and material contexts. She believes these partial perspectives can lead to more ethical and accountable knowledge practices. Instead of striving for detached objectivity, Haraway proposes a feminist objectivity rooted in humility and recognition of positionality, where researchers acknowledge their roles within the system they study. Zhang examines the complex dialectical relationship between techno-ethics and the boundaries of jewelry as an art form. It presents the evolution of contemporary art, which increasingly intertwined art, technology, politics, and society. Presenting contemporary jewellery as a unique art form has also been deeply influenced by the technological era, yielding both positive and negative effects. Many students had never encountered such an abstract and theoretical approach to space making, yet they embraced the opportunity to question the structures they had previously taken for granted. Colomina was challenging to many students because her central argument is the idea that modern architecture redefines privacy and exposure. Walls become screens, windows transform into lenses, and interiors are opened up to external gazers. Colomina provocatively positions modern architecture as an active participant in shaping human interactions, privacy, and identity within domestic settings, emphasizing the blurred boundaries between public and private life. She discusses the works of modernist architects like Le Corbusier and Adolphe Loos, who reimagined the home as a stage for living, emphasizing the interplay of light, shadow, and transparency to create layered experiences of interiority and exteriority. To many students, her challenge of these modernist icons, whom they had been taught to revere as fundamental to modern architecture, was a new alternative or approach to understanding. Zhang provided a framework for understanding through case studies, literature reviews, and comparative analysis how to approach contemporary jewellery to navigate the ethical challenges and opportunities of modern technology and reshaping societal values and artistic practices. As the students read and discussed these three very different texts, they began to see the value of thinking about architecture not just as a physical discipline, but as one deeply intertwined with social, cultural, and personal narratives. The texts invited a reconsideration of how one can experience and understand the spaces we inhabit. This was a transformative experience for many of them, opening up new avenues of thought and creative possibilities. The discussions that emerged from these readings were rich and multifaceted. Haraway's idea of unhomogeneous gendered social space challenged students to rethink their assumptions about how gender is performed and spatialized in everyday life. They considered how these ideas could influence their future architectural propositions, whether through design of buildings, public spaces, or even think about the human body to the built environment. This shift in thinking was crucial for the students, as it allowed them to explore architectural design through a lens that prioritized inclusivity, multiplicity, and fluidity, rather than adhering to rigid or traditional gender norms. A key question posed in this course is whether architects explore any of the aesthetic concerns of the jeweler. Do they engage with the intricate craftsmanship and intimate scale that jewelry demands? And do they, in fact, make jewelry themselves? As evidenced by the work of Arata Isozaki, Peter Eisenman, Richard Meyer, and Robert Venturi, the answer is yes. When architects turned their attention to jewellery, they applied their architectural mindset to create miniature sculptures that engage with the body in unique ways. This process is as much an exploration of space and form as our larger architectural projects. The relationship between these two fields is not new. In the 1988 publication Jewelry by Architects, prominent architects such as Isozaki, Eisenman, Meyer, and Venturi showcased how they applied architectural principles to jewelry design. Though smaller in scale, their pieces still dealt with the same concerns of structure, form, and space that define their larger architectural projects. These works could be seen as test pieces, maquettes, or sculptural investigations, demonstrating how architectural thinking can be adapted to different scales and materials. This course challenged students to consider how architects and jewelers examine architectonic concerns. Jewelers often consider the human body a site for their work, exploring the relationship between the object and the wearer. Architects, in contrast, are typically concerned with larger structures, spaces, and how people move throughout them. Yet both disciplines require a deep understanding of form, proportion, and materiality. As an educator, witnessing the students' capacity to embrace this new form of thinking through making was particularly thrilling for me. For many of them, this was an entirely new approach. Architecture, as it is traditionally taught, often emphasizes technical skills, structural integrity, and the aesthetics of form. Yet here the focus was on experimentation, questioning, and embracing the unknown. The students were encouraged to use their bodies as the primary site of investigation, allowing them to explore how architecture can respond and reflect the complexities of identity, culture, and gender. Despite the unfamiliarity of this approach, the students remained open-minded and enthusiastic throughout the process. They eagerly experimented with different materials, forms, and spatial concepts, pushing the boundaries of their own understanding. Mistakes were not only allowed, but celebrated as part of the creative process. This openness to experimentation and failure is something that is often missing in traditional architectural education, where students are often pressured to produce polished and flawless work. However, in this summer school, the emphasis was on the journey rather than on the end result. This shift in focus allowed the students to develop a deeper connection with themselves and the creative processes, fostering a sense of self-awareness that would undoubtedly influence their future work. Contemporary art has increasingly entwined art, technology, politics, and society. Throughout history, technology has equipped artists with new tools and mediums of expression, while art has inspired innovative directions for technological advancement. Throughout the studio, the students engaged in rapid prototyping, 3D printing, object making, and model production for casting. These activities helped them explore the architectural qualities of jewellery design while experimenting with materials, scale, and form. By making physical objects and artifacts, they explored the spatial considerations common to both architecture and jewellery, such as proportion, structure, and the relationship between the object and its user. As the summer school came to a close, it was clear that the students had gained valuable new perspective on architecture and design. They had learned to think critically about the spaces they create, not just in terms of form and function, but in terms of social and cultural narratives that those spaces embody. The feminist texts and discussions had opened their minds to new ways of thinking, and many of them expressed a desire to continue exploring these ideas in their future projects. However, the question remains whether this type of course will remain confined to summer school electives or whether it will become an integral part of the core architecture curriculum. I firmly believe that these conversations about gender, space, and architecture are too meaningful to be sidelined. They have the potential to transform the way we think and practice architecture, making it a more inclusive and socially conscious discipline. As educators, it is our responsibility to ensure that students are exposed to a diverse range of perspectives and that they are encouraged to question the status quo. In my own teaching, I place a strong emphasis on honesty and sharing personal experiences. This approach fosters a more genuine connection between educator and student and creates an environment where students feel comfortable taking risks and exploring new ideas. Throughout the summer school course, I made a point to share my own passion for the creative journey and to offer guidance and support as the students navigated their own processes. I encourage them to broaden their perspectives, to embrace challenges and mistakes, and always remain curious and open to new possibilities. This, to me, is the essence of what it means to be an educator. Architecture is not just about creating buildings or spaces, but it is about understanding and responding to the human experience in all its complexity. By engaging students in discussions about feminism, gender, and space, we are helping them develop a deeper understanding of the world around them and their place within it. We are encouraging them to think critically about the ways in which architecture can both reflect and shape social and cultural norms, and to consider how their own work can contribute to creating more inclusive and equitable spaces. Looking back on the summer school experience, I am incredibly proud of the students' achievements. They approached the course with enthusiasm, curiosity, and they demonstrated a remarkable capacity for critical thinking and creative exploration. Their pieces, whether drawings, models, or wearable objects, reflected their willingness to engage with complex ideas and push the boundaries of traditional architectural practice. Ultimately, the success of the summer school course reaffirms the importance of incorporating feminist and gender-related discourse into architectural education. These conversations are not just relevant to students who are interested in feminist theory or social justice. They are relevant to anyone who seeks to understand architecture's role in shaping the human experience. Whether or not this type of course becomes part of the core curriculum, I am confident that the students who participated will carry the lessons they learnt into their future work, and that they will continue to explore the possibilities that arise when architecture is viewed through a more inclusive and socially conscious lens. In the future, I wish to see more architecture schools embracing these ideas and integrating them into their teaching practices. By doing so, we can help create a new generation of architects who are not only skilled in the technical aspects of their craft, but who are also thoughtful, empathetic, and socially engaged. These are the architects who will shape the future of our built environment, and it is our responsibility as educator to ensure that they are equipped with the tools and knowledge that they need to do so in a way that is inclusive, equitable, and forward-thinking. Many, many thanks.